Okay, everybody, we are going to get started on your warm-up. You should have your warm-up sheet out on your desk. And let's look at number 1 here. We are given a graph and we need to write the function. So I'm going to start by checking where its vertex is. It's changed from where the original vertex is at 0, 0. So I went up 2 and I went right 3. And did I stretch? So when I go back 1, did I go up 1? No. When I go back 1, I only went up half. And when I go forward 1, I only go up half. So I stretch by a factor of 1/2. And I am positive. My A is going to be positive because my parabola is opening upwards. So my A is going to be a positive 1/2. My H is 3. And my K is 2. So when I go to write my function, my A goes in front, 1/2 times x, and instead of a plus 3, I do a minus 3, because remember it switches when it's in the equation, squared, x minus 2 squared plus 2. There we go. Our vertex is 3, 2. It is a min. The domain is all real numbers. My range is y is greater than or equal to 2, and my axis of symmetry is x equals 3. Okay, go ahead and put your warm-ups away. You'll be turning those in tomorrow. And go ahead and get your review out on your desk. I'm going to do the first 2 problems with you, and then we'll be alternating problems so that you can do some of them your own, but just wanted to go through a few of these before your test tomorrow. Okay, so I've got to graph the following. It gives me f of x equals 1/2 x plus 6 squared minus 3. So let's go ahead and identify. So my A is a 1/2. My H, remember, is going to be opposite what is in the equation, so it's a -6. And my K is a -3. So my vertex is -6, -3. And then I'm given my original points, and then remember, this is how I'm going to move, but I've got to multiply all these important y values by 1/2. The x's stay the same, and then 1/2 times 4 gives me a 2. 1/2 times 1 is 1/2. 1/2 times 0 is 0, and then I just get to repeat these. Okay, so let's go ahead and start by plotting our vertex at -6, -3. And then from there, when I go back 2, I go up 2. And then when I go back 1, I only go up 1/2. Forward 1, up 1/2, forward 2, up 2. And there we go. Okay, I'm going to do number 2 also with you guys. Okay, it says write the equation from the graph. Let's start by identifying our vertex. Our vertex is 3, 4. So I know that my H is 3 and my K is a positive 4. And then let's see how I move from that vertex. When I move from my vertex, I go back 1, down 1/2. Forward 1, down 1/2. I know that I usually go, when I go back 1, I go down 1. So this time when I went back 1, I only went down 1/2. My vertex is 0, 0. Forward 1, I went down 1/2. When I go back 2, I go down 1, 2, I go down 1, I go down 2. So back 2, down 2. Forward 2 is also down 2. So I know that I had to multiply all of these. This is going to give you that how your A moves, because here I'm multiplying by 1. So my A equals -1/2. So my equation for this graph is -1/2 times x minus 3 squared plus 4. So that should get you started. That will help you with number 3 and 4. And then moving right along, I'm going to do number 5 with you. It says write the equation and then graph. We reflect across the x-axis. So this means that my A is going to be a negative, and I stretch by a factor of 2. So it's going to be a -2. And then it says I translate up 2. So my K is going to be a 2. And then my H, it says I go left 1. So I go -1. So I can plot my vertex. I know that vertex, -1, 2. I'm going to go ahead and plot it on my graph. And I can write my equation, my formula. So -2 times x, it's going to be a +1 in the equation, squared plus 2. I multiply all of these important y values by -2. All those x's stay the same. So -2 times 4 becomes -8. -2 times 1 becomes -2. -2 times 0 is 0. And then I get to repeat. -2 times 1 is -2. And 4 times -2 is -8. So I've got my vertex plotted. From my vertex, I go back 2 and down 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then I go back 1, down 2. Forward 1, down 2. Forward 2, down 8. I have a max or a min. I have a max. My domain is all real numbers. My range, my arrows are pointing down, so that means they're getting smaller, so y will be less than or equal to 2, and my axis of symmetry is x equals -1. Okay, let's do number 6 together also. It says that I stretch by a factor of 1/3. So my A is going to equal 1/3. And then I translate up 6. So my K is 6 and left 2. So my H is -2. Our vertex is HK. So -2, 6. And I can write my equation. My A is 1/3. And then X, instead of negative, it's going to be a +2 because it's opposite in the equation. And then +6. So let's get our points taken care of. I have to multiply, my x's stay the same, but then I have to multiply my a value times those y's. So 1/3 times all of those y's. 1/3 times 4, I know that this was it's just going to become 4/3. And then if you have -1, 1, it's going to be 1/3 times 1 is 1/3. And then 1/3 times 0 is 0. 1/3 times 1 is 1/3. And then this one's going to be 4/3 again. You won't have a fraction like this on your test tomorrow. I'm sorry I didn't get that fixed before we started today. So that's why we're doing this one together. Let's plot our vertex at -2, +6. And then I go back 2, and then I'm going to do 4/3, so it's going to be somewhere up here. When I go back 1, I'm only going up 1/3, so it's going to be very close. And then when I go forward, I want to go up 1/3, 4/3. So it's going to look something like this. There we go. Okay, so do I have a max or a min? I have a min My domain is all real numbers. My range this time, y is going to be greater than or equal to 6, and my axis of symmetry is x equals -2. Okay, y'all can do number 7. And then we're going to do the even numbers, 8, 10, and 12 on the next page. So let's identify our A, H, and K. Okay, so here we go. This is where my point is. So did I go right or left? No, I did not. I only went down. So my H is 0 and my K is -3. My A, let's see how I moved. My important points, remember, I'd go back 2, down 4, or back 1, down 1. This time when I go back 1, I go down 2. Back 1, down 2. Forward 1, down 2. So that tells me that my A is going to be a 2, and it's going to be negative since I'm opening downward. So negative A. So my equation for number 8 is y equals -2x squared and then -3. Okay, let's move on to number 10. You can do the odds on this page. So again, let's identify our vertex. Remember, our vertex is our H and our K. So our vertex is 5, 3. So our H equals 5 and our K equals 3. Remember, we have to do opposite for our H in our equation. And then our A, let's see how this changed. My A is going to be positive because my parabola is opening upward. When I go back 1, I go up 2. So I am going to stretch or narrow by the factor 2. So for this equation, number 10, y equals 2 times x, and then I do the opposite of h, -5 squared plus 3. Okay, now let's do number 12. Okay, so let's identify our vertex. Our vertex is 1, -1. So my h is a 1 and my k is a -1. Now, when I go back 1, I went down 1. Forward 1, down 1. Back 2, I go down 1, 2, 3, 4. So that matches. The only thing that changed with my A is I'm opening down, so it's going to be a -1 for my A. So for this equation, y equals -1 times x, and then the opposite of h is -1 squared -1. Okay, number 14. Write the equation that defines the image of y equals x squared with a translation of 4 units up. Okay, so the only thing that happened was I moved up 4 units. That is talking about our k. So our k equals 4. So to fill in this equation, y equals, and then my a is just a 1. If you want to put that there, you can. And then nothing changed with my h, so it's just going to be x squared plus 4. Okay, number 15 y'all can do. Let's jump down to number 16 we can do together. Write the equation that defines the image of y equals x squared with a reflection across the x-axis. That means A is going to be negative. So A is negative something, and it narrowed by the factor 2. So A is -2. We translate down 3. My K moves up or down, so K is going to be -3. And H, it says it shifted right 4. So my H is going to be 4. Because my vertex, this is talking about where my vertex is. It's down 3 and right 4. So that means I would go right 4, down 3. If I make a little graph right here, it would be somewhere right here. That's where my vertex would be. So when I come back to write my equation, I am going to be y equals, and then negative 2 times x minus 4 squared minus 3. Okay, number 18, write the equation that defines the image of y equals x squared under a reflection across the x-axis and translated up 6 units. So with a reflection across the x-axis, that means my a is going to be negative. And it didn't widen or narrow, so it's just going to be a negative 1. Then it says that I moved up 6 units. So k, this is talking about my k, is 6 since it was up. And it doesn't say anything about my h, so it's going to be a 0. Now we can just fill in our a, h, and k into our equation. Y, or f of x, equals negative 1 times x. I don't have an h, so if you wanted to do plus or minus 0 squared, that's fine, and then plus 6. The simplest way to write it would be y equals negative 1 x squared plus 6. Okay, y'all are going to do number 19. I'll do number 20 with you. Compared to the graph of y equals x squared, the graph of f of x equals negative 1/2 x squared plus 6 is, it wants us to identify how they've changed, how this graph would change. So what changed? My a and my k. So with a, this I'm going to flip or reflect across the x-axis. And when it's a fraction, when my a is a fraction, that means I widen. Then my k means that I shifted up 6 units. There will be some like this on your test. They will be multiple choice. So you'll just have to decide if it's widened and up or widened and down, etc. Okay. Number 22, I'm going to let y'all do the odds on this page. Compared to the graph of y equals x squared, the graph of y equals 1/3 x minus 5 squared minus 6 is, and I'm going to identify these parts. So this is my a that changed, this is my h, and this is my k. A, it's a fraction, so that means that I widened. It's positive, I didn't flip or reflect across the x-axis. Then my h in the equation, remember I have to do the opposite of what's in the equation. So instead of at negative 5, it's going to be at plus 5. So that means that I shift right 5 units. And my k, I shift down. There you go. Like I said, there will be some like this on your test, but they will be multiple choice. Okay, so that is it for the review. You guys finish the rest of your review on your own, and we will have our test tomorrow.